First of all, thanks, Mike, for joining with us to discuss a very interesting topic. And there's a lot of write-ups, blogs, reports coming up on too many things like privacy, how the future of advertising is going to be, where the digital advertising is going to be, and third-party cookie going away, dying away, phasing out away. Too many keywords all around the place. So this week in first party ad buyers community, we are going to talk about digital marketing future for first party data. Let's crack the code in here. So to talk about the future with the first party data, and of course the future of digital advertising, we have Michael Sweeney, the head of marketing at ClearCode, and been in the ClearCode for more than 10 years. So I think Mike would be the right person to talk the entire journey of how the world has been evolving in terms of marketing, and how the next 5 years or 10 years is going to be. So we're so happy for taking your time out and giving a time with us to share your journey and knowledge and insights. So first of all, welcome and thank you so much for making your time.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. Really looking forward to this webinar. So thank you.
Great, superb. Awesome. I think with no further ado and not further beating around, so let's get it started, Mike. So tell me, it started where, how you wanted to start and where you wanted to start. Let's go back, like how the evolving is happening. How is it evolving? The digital advertising is evolving, and where does the problem lies? And how do you think that? How do you want to set the context when you're going to start your narration for this topic?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess, when we're talking about first party data, it all kind of originates from the privacy landscape in programmatic advertising and digital marketing. So I guess, many people watching today would be familiar with things like the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR. They might also know about the changes in web browsers and the whole end of third-party cookies in Google Chrome. So it really all centers around two key areas. The first one is privacy regulations, and the other side is privacy settings. So those are the essentially the two key forces that are driving all of the change in essentially programmatic advertising and digital marketing from a privacy perspective. So if we look at the privacy regulations, we've got, as I said, the European Union's GDPR, which essentially, was kind of the thing that has kickstarted it all from the regulatory perspective, right? Of course, there were, prior to that, there were other privacy laws, regulations in different countries. But the GDPR was really a big game changer for companies, because it meant that they had to change the way they collected user data, how they stored it, used it, etc. In addition to that, since the implementation of the GDPR, other governments around the world have introduced similar laws or updated existing privacy laws. So, for example, in the US, California has the California Consumer Privacy Act. Various other US states have also introduced their own privacy laws. Also, more recently, as many of you probably are aware, India has passed its Digital Personal Data Protection Act as well. So we can kind of see that globally, a lot of governments are taking notice of what the EU has done with the GDPR, and are starting to implement very similar things in their own country to protect the user data of their users. So yeah, just kind of staying on topic with the privacy laws. I guess the complicated thing for advertisers and marketers is that there's so many different privacy laws out there, and it can be quite hard to understand how you need to comply with those. So, for example, with the GDPR, in order to collect, use, and store personal data, you need to have some kind of legal basis for processing that data. And one of those ways is through consent. So especially for advertising and marketing, this is the main way that companies, abide by the GDPR, essentially by collecting consent. And this is an example of what's called a consent management platform in action. This is provided by Piwik Pro. And the consent management platform, as you can see, and no doubt many of you would have seen these on websites, it basically asks you to consent to the different processing activities that are happening on that particular website, and you can either opt in or opt out, or choose which processes you consent to. So that's kind of what's happening on the regulatory front. And a lot of other countries, or companies in other countries, not just in the EU, are essentially implementing this because when it comes to privacy laws, one of the approaches that companies take is to essentially look at which privacy law globally is the most stringent, which one has let's say the highest restrictions, let's say, or where the law is the most severe, and then they essentially comply with that one, so it essentially covers them for the other ones. But this is just one example of the consent management platform that you'd often see like on websites. And then, as I mentioned a second ago, there are also the technical settings, which are happening inside web browsers and mobile apps. So when it comes to when it comes to web browsers, there has been quite a few changes that have happened over the past few years that have impacted the ability for companies to run their digital advertising and marketing campaigns. So, for example, companies like Apple with their Safari web browser and Mozilla with their Firefox web browser, they've made changes to increase user privacy for people that use their web browsers. And one of the ways they've done that is by essentially blocking third-party cookies. They've also implemented other changes as well to make it harder for companies to create other types of identifiers. But broadly speaking, blocking third-party cookies was quite a big move for these companies. So third-party cookies, if people aren't aware of what they are, they're essentially a storage mechanism inside web browsers. But advertising and marketing companies use third-party cookies to essentially identify individual users as they move across the internet, as they move from one website to another. So this is where you'll often hear things like, third-party trackers or cross-site identification, cross-site tracking. It all refers to the identification of individuals across multiple websites. And the way that third-party cookies allow companies to do that is generally through a ad tech or martech platform. So as you can see in the diagram here, when a user visits one website, let's say publisher.com, the ad tech or martech platform that they use will create a third-party cookie for that particular user. Then when that user visits other websites, provided that the ad tech or martech platform can read the cookie that it created. So for example, if news.com and blogsite.com also use the same ad tech or martech platform, then that ad tech or martech platform can identify that same user because they can essentially identify that it's the same cookie that they created on publisher.com. So that process is a little bit complicated, but it essentially just means that an ad tech or martech company can identify the same person across multiple different websites. So once you've got the identity part done with third-party cookies, then you can start to run some of the key programmatic advertising processes, such as audience targeting, retargeting, frequency capping, measurement and attribution as well. And then when we're talking about a world without third-party cookies in web browsers, this is essentially what it means. It means that companies, whether you're a publisher, an advertiser, an ad tech or martech company, it's a lot harder for you to identify individuals across different websites. And so, again, getting back to the identity part, if you can't identify that someone visiting a website at a given time is a member of your target audience, then it's going to be a lot harder to identify whether to show them a specific ad or not. And this has far-reaching consequences for both advertisers and publishers. So for advertisers, it means that the scale in which they're able to reach their target audience is minimized, which can obviously severely impact their performance of their advertising campaigns. It can also make it harder for them to measure the performance of their campaigns. Like it can be hard for them to identify where their sales are coming from or conversions are coming from, which channels or which websites are performing best. And for publishers, it also means that they will earn less ad revenue, which is one of the key monetization strategies for a lot of websites today. Because if you're an advertiser, you will generally pay more to show an ad to someone if that person is a member of your target audience, if you believe that person will be interested in seeing an ad for your product or service. So if you can't identify whether that person is a member of your target audience, it generally means that you're going to pay less to show them show them that ad, or maybe you won't pay to show them an ad at all, which then obviously means that publishers will start to earn less ad revenue. And then when we talk about the mobile apps, which are also part of the privacy settings, we're also starting to see some changes happening with them. So the main change that's been introduced is with Apple. So as we all know, the kind of two main operating systems when it comes to the mobile environment are iOS from Apple and Google's Android. So with Apple, they've kind of taken a very similar approach to what they've done with Safari. They've introduced changes that make it harder for app developers to collect a given user's IDFA. Now, the IDFA stands for ID for advertising, and it's kind of like third-party cookies for mobile apps, but they work a little bit differently. But the essential goal is the same. The goal is to identify individual users across different mobile apps. And again, the reason you do that is so that you can identify members of your target audience, show them relevant ads, measure the performance of your ad campaigns, etc. So Apple have introduced something called the App Tracking Transparency Framework, or the ATT framework. And what this means is that for iOS users, iPhone users, for example, before before an app developer can access an iOS user's IDFA, they need to ask for opt-in consent, basically. And as you might be able to see here, this little message on the right. This is the message that people will see on iOS devices, and people who are watching of iPhones have probably seen these messages on their apps. And it's basically where the app developer will ask the user if they can collect their IDFA and use it for advertising. If the user agrees, then the IDFA is passed in the same way as it was before. But if the user declines, if they reject that, then the IDFA is still passed, but it basically just contains all zeros, which from an identity perspective is completely useless. So again, we're starting to see Apple really start to increase user privacy across all of their products and services, primarily with Safari and iOS as well. Google have introduced something similar to Android, but it's not as severe as with Apple. So, now that I've kind of explained what's happening, especially from a technical perspective, now is the question, what does it all mean? So as I was kind of touched on a moment ago, these privacy changes either limit or prevent companies from being able to identify individuals across websites and mobile apps. And as I said a second ago, identity is crucial for running a lot of the programmatic advertising and digital marketing activities that advertisers and marketers have been using for many, many years. So a couple of the kind of key things that result from this is that, it's much harder to reach audiences and run retargeting, measurement attribution. As I said before as well, publishers, whether it's a website owner or a mobile app developer, they generally will earn less ad revenue, which can obviously impact their business directly. There are also some alternatives as well, but there is no one-to-one replacement for third-party cookies or mobile IDs. So yeah, now just kind of touching on the main alternatives to third-party cookies and mobile IDs. So as I said, there is no one-to-one replacement. Once third-party cookies are gone, marketers and advertisers and publishers and app developers will have to look for some alternatives to continue running their digital marketing and advertising campaigns and processes. And here are just some of the main ones, some of the main alternatives. So with Google Chrome, as I said before, their plan is to shut off support for third-party cookies in 2024. So starting from January, they'll slowly start to do this for, I think it's about 1% of all Chrome users. And then by the end of 2024, their goal is to get it done for every user. And then once they've done that, they will look at implementing their privacy sandbox, which is essentially an initiative that contains many different standards that are designed to replace the processes that are currently carried out by third-party cookies. It won't replace third-party cookies directly because, as I said, there is no one-to-one replacement, but Privacy Sandbox will aim to run key processes such as audience targeting or interest-based targeting, measurement, etc., attribution, but in a much more privacy-friendly way. The main issue with that is that it's only going to be applicable in the Google environment. So primarily Google Chrome and on Android-powered devices. It won't work on Safari or Firefox. That's kind of like one of the main limitations regarding that. One of the other alternatives is ID solutions. So these are basically, in terms of alternatives, these are ID solutions are the closest thing that we'll have to third-party cookies. But because they'll essentially work in a very similar way, but the scale will be much smaller with ID solutions. And the reason for that is because in order to create an ID using one of these ID solutions, you'll generally need some kind of piece of deterministic data, whether it's like an email address or a phone number, in order to create the ID. You can also create the IDs using probabilistic data, but they're going to be less accurate as well. Another alternative is contextual targeting, which is a very kind of like old school targeting method, but still highly effective for some companies. And then the last one is about utilizing first-party data and combining that with using a customer data platform as well. And this is one area where there's a lot of opportunity for companies, and certainly this is kind of leading into the next part of the webinar as well, where we start talking about the first-party data and CDP use cases.
Absolutely. Michael, thank you so much. So that was a great brief of or the summary of the last 3-4 years, what has been happening. So I just have a few questions, if you could help me more. So with the solutions like how the privacy sandbox or ID solutions or contextual targeting, which was very rightly said, it was very old school of targeting, and the first party data and CDP uses of CDP. So if you want to little break, give a just a differentiation, like what exactly first party data that you mean. Because the reason that I'm asking is I have spoken to a lot of marketers for the demo calls or otherwise. So when I use the word first party data, there's a constant buzz, all right? So when I say first party data is usually meant to be like whoever lands on your website and like with their first name, last name, email ID. So somebody who is given their information or fill the form, so that is usually considered to be first party data. But when we say there's an alternate solution for third party cookie going away is first party data, it is also the entire website behaviors, like all the anonymous website visitors as well. So do you have something to add in that part of it?
Yeah,
In general.
definitely, and it's a really great point that you mentioned as well, because certainly when we're talking about the move, let's say to first party data, as you said so yourself, a lot of marketers and advertisers out there, don't necessarily know that they don't really understand what first party data means to them or to their business, right? And I think that's really in many ways the first step in creating a first party data strategy is analyzing your current business structure. Like how does your business work? What kind of digital assets do you have? What data do those different digital properties collect? Because that's, once you kind of understand all the different types of data that you collect, that's when you can start to build strategies and start to think about how you can utilize that moving forward. So, like for example, some companies might collect email addresses for their newsletter, right? But they might not be aware that that's an example of first party data, right? I mean, it's one of the main examples of first party data, but some companies might kind of miss that point or something. So yeah, it really kind of starts with identifying what you're doing currently, what digital properties, whether it's website, mobile apps, etc., the social media platforms you use, what do you use currently, and what types of data do those different platforms collect, and how you can also gather all that data together, because it's much harder to kind of activate and use data if it's spread across your website, mobile app, Facebook account. It gets really messy, and it can be really hard to see an overview of the different pieces of data and how it all ties together, and more importantly, how you can activate it as well.
Absolutely. So just adding some more and just summarizing that. So to put it in very easy terms, so when first party data for any business, let me categorize two major businesses like e-commerce industry or lead generation industry. So when we say first party data, it's not somebody that has given their email ID, first name, last name, but it's also somebody who has visited a website, has browsed couple of pages, maybe checked out couple of products, checked the pricing, and left the site. So those are also the website first party data that I'm talking about. So they have showed interest in your site and they left the site. So apparently from I think 90 to 95 or 97 percentage of the website visitors are anonymous. Only 2 to 3 percentage of audience that who actually visits our website actually leaves their first name, last name, or they are our customers, so that we have their personal information. But 90 percentage of it are the anonymous website visitors. And to break it down even more, let's say 2% or let's say 5% of the audience who visits your website, we have their first name, last name, email ID, all that. Let's say there is an average bounce rate or a junk audience on your website of 25 or 30 percentage. So that sums to 35 percentage. All right, now remaining comes that 70 or 65 percentage of the audience who have visited your website. First of all, you have paid for that visit on your site, and they have browsed a couple of products on your site, and they left the site without converting or without giving an a conversion or without purchasing. So the question arises is, what are we actually doing to those 60 or 65 percentage of the users who has shown interest but not purchased, and also we have paid for that visit? So let me take you through from where Mike has given us a brief, and let me take you through the next part of it, and what do we actually do, and how do we actually formulate this data going forward, and what are the use cases that we are actually seeing for brands. So just a brief. So after the privacy, all that we have spoken enough about this privacy and third party cookie going away, and we have introduced one of the solutions like first party data is going to be the future. And also AI, we cannot not use AI in the future of advertising. So let's say in terms of performance max campaigns, advantage plus campaigns, or value based bidding, everywhere like Google, Meta, everybody is craving for that first party audience to know about your visitors, like who is a good customer, who is a bad customer, for Meta to identify who is a good one, who is likely to convert, and who is a bad one, where we do not want to put more money on. For all this information, we have to feed as much as first party data for the ad platforms, so that it helps us target the right audience. For this, we need enough data, right? So making data very actionable for the marketers is very important. Let's say the website conversion tracking and connecting your CRM with the ad platforms, and sending the bottom funnel conversions from your CRM directly to the ad platform, to help at the ad platform identify your ideal customer profile. So if this is a value of my customer, this is a persona of my customer, this is a behavior of my customer, so all this information of your ICP will be tracked from the website, will be tracked from the CRM, will be tracked from the POS systems, will be tracked from their past records that can be brought from a CSV file. So all these sources, all these connecting these sources are very important for the ad platform to identify your ideal customer profile. For this, we actually need a few techniques to do the ID resolutions and find the unique profiles, and with of course maintaining the data sharing controls, but not compromising on the accuracy, and sharing this audience signals to ad platforms in almost real time to optimize your campaign in real time. So when talking about how first party data or how CDP can help you on this, and there is too much search terms on CDP and performance CDP lately after all this privacy complaints have come up. So to just give a quick differentiation what CDP and performance CDP is. CDP, traditionally known to be unifying profiles, combining user profiles from multiple sources, ID resolution, and creating unique 360-degree profiles. So that is what traditionally the CDP is known for. But a performance CDP is actually does a one step more, that is helping or enhancing or empowering marketers for making the use of this data points that we have collected across platforms actionable and see visible results in terms of measuring the metrics, measuring the audience, improving their campaign performance in terms of ROAS, in terms of custom audience match rates, in terms of increasing their LTV and reducing the CAC, in terms of all these performance aspects and making it actionable for marketers. It requires a performance CDP itself. So for example, when I say making it actionable for performance marketers, to for making marketers giving all the data of their customers. So this is one of the example, right? So we ran an experiment of for one of our clients. So we created a custom audience of entire PDP pages. So their total audience size was 1.9 million or almost 2 million. So we created two audiences using one with Facebook pixel and one with first party data pixel, that is the customer labs pixel. So we created audiences in the both the pixel and we synced with Facebook. Facebook was able to identify only 5 to 6 lakhs from the 2 million, but using the Facebook pixel audience, wherein customer labs first party data was able to identify 15 to 18 lakhs from the 2 million of the total audience size. So it is primarily because of the very first thing that we're talking about, right? The first party data that we are collecting and storing, and we are communicating to the ad platforms real time, so that Facebook is able to identify that 70 to 80 percentage of your high intent audience who are likely to convert. So what happens when you are actually giving all the information of your ideal customer profiles to Facebook? It actually helps to reach your ads, your messaging, your narrative to your uh, right ICPs. Also, when you are giving the right customer when you're giving the more audiences for your ad algorithm, what else the ad algorithm does for you is, one other example is this. So for advantage shopping plus campaigns, so advantage shopping plus campaigns a new thing, right? So every e-commerce marketers does run a shopping plus campaigns. To just show a small preface, so this is how the advantage shopping plus campaigns runs. And Meta recommends to use the UTM parameters for every new customer, for existing customer. So when we are actually differentiating between the new and the existing customer with UTMs, we will be able to identify of how many existing customer has converted and how many new customer did we acquire from this campaign, from this setup. So for this, when we saw the insights, how was conversion metrics has been and how the performance has been, all of that, so this is what we were able to see. So new audience is the new customers who got acquired in this campaign, and first party audience is nothing but your retargeting audience. Basically, this visitor has already been visiting your website. So the conversion metrics for your first party audience is 5.5 percentage, but wherein your new customer conversion metrics is 1.9 percentage. So this is what happens when you're actually nurturing your website visitors with more engaging content and giving find helping Facebook to identify who your ideal customer profile is. So this is what the conversion metrics that we are actually seeing for the brands who is actually using first party first party audience. And adding to little more, so what happens when you're actually using first party audience, and it becomes your part of your marketing life oil, right? So what happens 3 months later, 6 months later, we actually see incremental revenue effects on your overall business itself. So if you are somebody who is relying on the campaign level ROAS, campaign level impressions, campaign level business metrics, so that is not some that's exactly not the right way to measure your campaign or the entire setup that you've done, right? So what is the incremental effect of actually influencing your campaign with the first party audience? So this is what we have seen for our brand. So we were able to influence 15 percentage of their extra revenue in the long run of 3 to 4 or 5 months. They use first party data in their campaigns. Similarly, this is again one of our customers where it's in a 1 year's report. So in their entire 1 year, they have had 2,70,000, means 77,000 purchases. In that 2,77,000 purchases, 75,000 users were the anonymous website visitors whose information has been collected and saved with us and has been constantly being nurtured and used. And so in the long of 1 year, we were able to convert them. So this is a power of influence that we are actually seeing with the brands who have actually started using first party data in their journey. So this is a couple of use cases that we are actually seeing for brands who is engaging with first party audience in their martech stack. So these are the couple of use cases. So Gautam, do you have any specific questions in terms of industry that you wanted to ask me or Mike here?
Yeah, Sarika, mostly I have seen many marketers talk about first party data, but as you mentioned, they're not able to leverage the full potential. So, what do you think would help marketers to completely take the full power of first party data and see details? You have shown me the revenue metrics, that's really great, but then how can they actually leverage the full potential of first party data? Maybe you or Mike, both of them can give me some insights on that.
So I'll leave it to Mike to start with.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, that's a really great question. And, like I was kind of touching on before, this is, again, one of the main challenges with creating a first-party data strategy because, when we kind of compare it to how, digital advertising and programmatic advertising and marketing works now, especially if you're using, platforms like, Facebook or Google Ads, right? Those platforms, as you showed as well a moment ago on the screen, is that they provide, pixels that you can then add to your website to essentially retarget your visitors, right? So, for a lot of marketers, that's kind of what they've just been doing for the past few years. But, the challenge then moving forward is, with the whole end of third-party cookies and everything that's happening around privacy, you may have a lot less of that available to you. So that's when you've got to start looking at the data that you collect already, your first-party data, and deciding what you can do with that. And I think the examples that you just provided a second ago, those use cases, really highlights the potential of first-party data strategies, because it's kind of, in a way, it's kind of, like thinking outside the box, essentially, instead of kind of relying on the tools that, the platforms that you work with now provide, like, Facebook ads or Google ads or any other kind of platform, is kind of thinking a little bit more in a strategic and advanced way about utilizing your own data in those platforms. So I think that's, in terms of unlocking the data, I think as I said before, it kind of all starts with identifying, doing a bit of an audit about what you currently collect, and then thinking about the opportunities and the ways that you can move forward with that, but based on your strategy. And I certainly think that platforms like customer data platforms are going to play a key role in this, because they are really, these are platforms that allow marketers and advertisers to collect all their data, all their first-party data from all these different places, store it in one place, get a really good overview of, all the individual customers, individual users, and essentially then activate that data in a meaningful way. So I certainly think that, CDPs are a really useful tool to, first of all, collect this data, organize it, and then activate it as well.
Exactly. Thank you so much. So adding to that, I'll just quickly show custom labs, how custom labs does it. So when we are setting events, so basically where you start is start collecting your own data, having a CDP if it helps your business. So CDP is not something, and again, we are not going for an traditional way of thinking only enterprise companies or a very big company has an SCDP. Every small medium businesses deserves or needs an SCDP for their every small to big marketing activities that they are doing for their organizations. So at custom lab, so when you just see a page event, our event match quality score is 7.5 on 10. So this is primarily because of all the advanced matching parameters that I'm sending off all the users to Facebook to identify my ICP for them. Also, to add to also one more point, so we use CRM, right? So on CRM we have my ideal customer profiles, more information there. So I also connect my CRM here, and I add my deal stage of any qualified solution. So whoever is qualified profiles for me, I'm also sending the qualified solution fit to my Facebook, so that Facebook identifies, okay, this is an ideal customer profile of customer labs. So I send the qualified event to Facebook, so that Facebook identifies, okay, custom labs ideal profile looks like this also. So for them, I give the deal name, deal stage, currency, value, account name, all this information. I share it with Facebook, so Facebook able to identify which is actually going to help you in your marketing efforts. So similarly for e-commerce business, it is again like activating those anonymous website visitors, right? Somebody who's done added to cart but not purchased, what are you going to do with them? Let's say you have your new year's coming in, you will start running your sale in next 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So you can target the last 3 months or 4 months of all the added to carts for their retargeting campaigns, pushing them for discounts or sales, all of that. So Gautam, if you ask me where to start, I would simply say having a CDP for yourself, start collecting your website visitors already, and activate them on ad platforms with higher audience match rates. Give what Facebook wants, give what Google needs now, and scale your campaigns, man. So that's pretty much it.
Great. Thank you, Sarika. Thank you, Michael, for that. I think I got my mantra for the next future of digital marketing. Use a CDP, leverage your first party data. Cool. Sarika, there was one marketer who was asking me about this. Before that, I have a question in the chat.
Yeah.
So, how do we integrate CDP to our existing data stack, and like how difficult or easy it would be? So, can you just guys some of you answer that? Michael, can you answer that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess it all kind of depends on your current setup and what tools you're using, right? Because there's different ways of integrating these different platforms together, right? And no doubt, so you guys will better kind of talk more about this from the customer labs perspective. But it could be as simple as placing a piece of code on your website, right? Adding it to your tag management system. To kind of start collecting data about your website visitors, etc. There are also other APIs that you can use, like on a more technical level between these different platforms. Different server-to-server integrations, etc. So I would say that it's like overly complicated. Certainly, there are kind of easier ways to do it. Like I said, it could just be as simple as adding a piece of code to your website. But then if you want to start talking to other platforms like maybe Google Ads or some other platform, then there might be some kind of integration that you need to set up. But generally, there'll be people at those other platforms, like the ones that you use, that will be able to help you with that as well. But yeah, feel free to jump in, guys, and explain more about it from your perspective.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Michael. Sarika, I think you can just show the setup how quickly and how easily we can set up a CDP. Like especially, you can show it from custom lab CDP how easy we are able to do compared to other CDPs, and then you can also focus on the second question, which is like how we can use CDP data and revolves or sales. Like you can maybe give some information about both of these questions, Sarika.
Yeah, I think Manoj, we we should talk more outside the webinar as well. But to give a small overview, so however your website is built on, it's a very easy setup that we have in here. So if you are on any web host like Shopify or any of that, we have a direct plugins. So just paste the code on the header and the pixel, and you're good to go for the entire tracking. And if you are a custom build, just like Mike mentioned, a couple of code pasting in your tags, and we are good to go. And if you, let's say, if you have in a CRM, you can connect your CRM as well to send the bottom funnel stages to the ad platforms. So entire setup that I'm talking about means I have put in too many words, but actually the setup doesn't require that. Maybe in a day or two, the entire setup can be done. And in terms of how can we use CDP data for revops and sales, so so you can build your own, you can see your entire user journey, from where did they come from, which campaign did they convert from, and how much session did they spend on your site. So all those in details that you can see for every visitors. So but in terms of building analytics and dashboards at the moment in custom apps, we are not focusing on that. Probably in next quarters or so that we should have them. But but individually you can see in every users which campaign did you get them from, which ad platform they came from, all those things that you should be able to do it.
Thank you, Sarika. Adding to that, Manoj, based on what Sarika said, you can also integrate your data directly into BigQuery, Looker Studio, and then there you can build models and graphs according to your own data, because we'll give you all data to you. So it's up to you how you can picturize it or visualize it using other tools. So we have direct API integrations. So it's just data pull in, data push in. So it's very easy if with direct integrations. With custom integration, with little more efforts, we can be able to do that. So that's it from my side, Sarga. I think we don't have any more questions. So do you have anything to add, Michael, like a closing statement or maybe a T-shirt quote for the future?
Yeah, it's a good question. I definitely would say that maybe we can kind of finish with this. I think this is quite relevant for a lot of companies. That my advice, I guess, for companies watching out there is that if you haven't already started your journey down this path of creating a first-party data strategy, then now is the time to do it. We've seen with Apple Safari and Firefox and Apple iOS the changes that these tech companies have made. Not only including the the regulatory laws and that kind of thing that have also been introduced, but this is there's more to come, and the big one will be Google Chrome, because currently the reason we're still talking about things like the end of third-party cookies is because even though they don't exist in Safari and Firefox, the reason we're still talking about it is because Google Chrome has about 65-70% global market share of web browsers, so it still is a big player in the web browser market. So once third-party cookies go from Google, it's going to be big changes for advertisers and marketers out there. So yeah, if you haven't already started, your path, your journey down the first party data strategy, now is the right time.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Michael. That's a good quote I got. So, Sarika, so please give me a quote from your side as well.
I think my t-shirt quote would be, give Facebook what it wants, give Google what it needs today, and it's nothing but first party data. Give Google what it wants, give Facebook what it wants, and eventually whatever you're trying to achieve on your marketing campaigns, it should be absolutely done. So give it, yeah, give, no give, feed them what they want. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that summarizes the entire discussion around it.
Yeah, so also adding a few things here. So next at the year end wrap, we are having another webinar with um, Vishnu, who is the founder and CEO of Custom Labs, and with the marketing ops community founder, Mr. Yuan. So we're going to have a year-end wrap on speaking about why everyone deserves a CDP. That's pretty much it, and that's going to be a year-end wrap. And they'll be talking again on too many aspects of how data evolve, how data is getting evolved over years, and how marketing ops can leverage it to all. So that will be our year-end wrap. And again, Mike, thank you so much for taking your time, joining with us, and spending a lot of hours together in the last 2 weeks for us. So thank you so much for giving a knowledge, insight, and absolute time. And we'll look forward to talk to you more in many webinars online, as well as help us generally over your insights for us as well. So thank you so much for taking your time, and thank you guys for joining. And thank you, Gautam. And I think that's pretty much it. Thank you so much, guys, and we'll see you in the next webinar.